Eat my shit!
Hey, have you ever found yourself at 3 in the morning just wanting to watch something to the point where you've abandoned any sense of standards, instead allowing yourself to be satisfied by moe Q and bullshit and forgettable waifus? Well then here's Bland S, enjoy how inoffensively generic it is. Everyone else should avoid this show like the plague. There is nothing valuable here unless you're satisfied by stale memes. Did you remember those memes? Or had you spent the last several months happy in the fact that you'd forgotten about their existence until I brought it up just now?
Oh man, Ahego, you seem to be fairly angry about this show that hasn't been relevant for like 6 months. Why are you only making a video now instead of when you could have cashed in? Why are you even making a video at all? Why do you keep me locked in your wardrobe?
Thanks for asking, Ogeha, my autistic clone. There's a good reason for that. The biggest problem in Blend S is that nothing happens, and the series feels like a giant waste of time because of it. This kills it as a piece of slice of life, making it feel like a black hole sucking your will to live into a bottomless pit of despair, as you're left to grasp with the heinous sin that you've just committed, on the activity you've just finished. Basically what you feel after having a wank.
I thought nothing ever happens in slice of life shows.
Just because nothing happens doesn't automatically make the show feel like a waste of time. A truly great slice of life series is able to create likeable characters that I can come to care for and be invested in because of the much more laid back setting, not in spite of it. Let's forget about Blend S for a second, not that hard to do, let's be honest, and focus on one of my favourite slice of life shows, Genshiken. Episode 8 of Genshiken has our characters build model kits. Kasukabe accidentally breaks it. The end. That brief description says everything that happens plot-wise within the episode, but it comes nowhere near close to describing the actual experience that came from watching our characters interact with one another. The episode focusing on such a small task allows us to connect with them on a deeply personal level, as we can see just how passionate they are about their hobbies on a much more casual daily basis. It allows us to create a genuine relationship to that model kit along with our protagonists. We see how much time and effort they've put into making their models as perfect as possible, so when they're guilted into giving it over to somebody who doesn't fully understand their hobby and can't relate to the whole process, the suspense felt is completely real. The fact that Kasukabe accidentally breaking the kit could actually happen gnaws at the back of your mind like a tumour. The tension felt builds and builds until finally the payoff occurs, and we see her break the robot. This is what made the series great and perfectly shows the appeal of slice of life. Sure, not much of value actually happened to our characters, but it allowed us to heavily reinforce the idea that Kasukabe isn't an otaku and can't relate to the rest of the gang. It shows that she's an outsider, but also displays her genuine interest in what the club does. She was the one who asked after all. She cares about the group for more reasons than, I think this guy is hot. If you were to compare that to Blend S and look at the complete lack of purpose felt in the vapid nothingness within that show, then it's easy to tell which of the two is superior. In Blend S it felt artificial, as if the series was just showing the audience what it felt like they wanted. This comes across in everything it does, from its poorly executed waifu monstrosities to its constant references and meta-humor, which is something else that was completely wasted on the show, doing literally everything Digibrony pointed out as wrong in its anime is getting lazy with its meta video. The show just points out that a trope exists, acting as if that's a joke, instead of actually doing something funny with this level of self-awareness, expanding that and creating something genuinely entertaining. The entire setting of the show is that its characters all work in a cosplay cafe. Just think of all the potential for criticisms of otaku culture that could have been done within this premise. I guarantee that whatever your untrained, unfunny mind is thinking is infinitely more entertaining than the show saying, hey look, this girl's a tsundere, and her job is to act like a tsundere. This guy's into Yuri, don't you like seeing anime girls be gay together?
This girl draws very violent pornography. See, you're not the only one.
The reason I kept watching wasn't because I particularly liked the show and found value in the time I spent watching it. I kept watching the show because I wanted to watch anything which didn't require much thought. If you're one of the people who watched it on a weekly basis, I guarantee that this was the reason why. I should know, since I was one of those people. Despite my rantings about how meaningless the show is, I continued. Even when I couldn't take it and dropped the show 5 episodes in, it only took 3 weeks for me to sheepishly type its title into the Crunchyroll search bar, thus continuing my boredom and shame. After all, the biggest appeal of Blend S is just how digestible it is. But there are numerous other slice of life series that are just as consumable, which I could watch instead. Even ignoring the legitimately interesting shows within the genre, such as Gakko Garashi, I could have seen the same style of spastic anime rom-com in numerous other much better series. I could get the same warm atmosphere but in moe ways than Blend S could even hope to achieve in all my favourite cute girls do cute things anime. I could get actual good meta humor from several different shows, or watch numerous other series that focus on the workplace. Not to mention that if my sole reason for watching Blend S was its consumable nature, then there are several other series that could easily fulfill that urge, with episodes shorter than your typical YouTube video. Even if I refused to watch anything except for a slice of life comedy series set in a cafe made by A1 Pictures with a romance between the members of staff, I could have just rewatched Working. Why would I watch Blend S when there were so many infinitely better shows out there? Seeing the same tired characters, tropes and sense of humour that I can get from any anime comedy doesn't leave me feeling like much was gained after completing one of the show's rather forgettable episodes. If you want an example of how the comedy could have been used to make a character interesting, then you don't even have to try very hard. Just look at the series poster girl, Micah. Her
joke
is that she's a really nice girl, but the evil look in her eyes scares everyone. This isn't a particularly funny thing to do, nor is it difficult to execute, so how the fuck did they manage to mess it up to the point where the majority of the time it isn't even a joke? You would expect that at the very least, A1 Pictures would have gone to the effort of giving her a character design that can emphasize her evil eyes. But she just comes across as a cute anime girl for the most part. This was the perfect place to place a running gag. Looking at this wasted opportunity, I can't help but compare it to the currently airing The Disastrous Life of Saiki K. Terahashi is a perfect girl. That's her joke. So in order to show that, the series has her constantly emitting an aura of light, even if she's just a background character in whatever subplot is currently taking place. This means that every time I see her, I'm reminded of her running gag and all the creative ways the show has used this joke to make me laugh. It reminds me of something funny just by having her on screen. Why couldn't A1 Pictures just do this one simple thing? Did they think nobody would watch their show if you didn't have the cute girls? Because by not giving her the only trait that separates her from every other waifu, they're not making her anything more than an empty husk of what these characters should be. It's not as if it's impossible to give a character what should be an unattractive trait, but still have the audience treat the character like a waifu. Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei did it over a decade ago. For those of you who haven't seen Zetsubo Sensei, it was a parody of harem series, where the whole joke was that each waifu was made to be as horrible as possible. Characters' personalities would range from being a hikikomori, to an obnoxious American, to a stalker. Yet, despite these terrible traits, we still cared immensely for each character, because the show's commitment to just how terrible these people were actually gave them all charm. In fact, there are numerous different waifus that I would deem to be much better than whatever the current season's tsundere trash is, because the show actually made them likeable. And despite how bad this lack of purpose and bad meta humor affect Blend S, they aren't even the biggest problem within the show. That dishonor goes to the manager of Stile and his relationship with Micah.
そういうコスプレっぽいのまで許してしまったらマイカさんが
Oh my god, he has the most obnoxious voice I've ever heard. I know that this sounds like my priorities aren't where they should be, and who even pays attention to whatever ching-chong's being spoken, but it was actually that fucking atrocious. I've seen hentai which give better foreign accents than his.
Very hot.
His voice constantly sounded as if he was just about to sneeze, which I guess is them giving him a funny accent, maybe? If it was just to come off as funny, then I guess some people who like jokes more blunt than somebody beating you over the head with a baseball bat knocking you unconscious so that they can rape your tiny butthole, no Vaseline involved, while you wake up screaming, begging them to stop, but they continue anyway, because they know that your pain is something that you hate, and that pain is what I feel while watching this fucking show. But you know what? If you like jokes as blunt as that, you might be somewhat entertained by. That's not even mentioning his personality, which is defined by the fact that he likes anime, gets physically punished by his employees, and he wants to bone someone who's still in high school. Well, you know what the old saying is, when all other waifus are trash, you give the lolly a smash. Yeah, the show kind of glosses over that last part, and with its cutesy art style making it impossible to tell how old each character is, you could easily miss it. But the manager is wealthy enough to own a cosplay cafe. How could he have this level of financial security if he's still in high school? Even giving him the benefit of the doubt and saying that the first thing he did after graduating from college in Italy was to move to Japan and open up a trashy cosplay cafe. This already sounds retarded, but it's an anime, so whatever. I've seen weirder things happen. That would still put him somewhere in his mid-20s. Granted, she's 16, which I would deem old enough to be able to make decisions in regards to you and your sex life, and the age of consent in Japan means that it technically isn't illegal. Plus, he's not attempting sexual assault, but it's still really fucking weird. Especially since all of their co-workers actively support the manager lusting over a high schooler, as if to reassure the deluded fat 30-somethings watching this show that what they're doing also isn't creepy. Don't feel shame. Here, enjoy this lolly. Also, nothing happened in the romance. While this does help ease my mind, knowing that ephebophilic activities didn't take place, it also means that the only plot in the show had no development. They started on good terms with the manager liking her black hair, and Micah, I hate that I know her name, liking the fact that he's foreign. And the show ends in pretty much the same place. Why couldn't the series have done something? Maybe have Micah realize she likes the manager more than she thought, or have an event equally generic occur? Anything would be better than what we got. Seeing as the show is working with a slap of paint, I feel like that's the most apt comparison to bring up when explaining how to develop a romance in this setting. I'm not going to act as if that was anything more than an acceptable 6 out of 10, but Working at least had the ability to have the main two develop a relationship. The main duo started out with a girl who was so scared of men that she would literally punch one in the face on reflex if she ever saw them. Already a funnier joke than anything to come from Blend S. But the two gradually grew a relationship over the next 30 plus episodes. Even though I don't think that this series is particularly good or in any way worthy of your time, unless you plan on watching dicking around the animation, this at least meant that I was left with a reason to keep watching the show. Even when the humour isn't that great or the episode plotline isn't interesting, there was still something to keep me invested, and by the time I was finished with the show, I was rewarded for sticking with it until the end. In Blend S, the best moments of the show by far were when the focus was taken away from our main couple, and instead showed other people who worked in Stile, which wouldn't be that much of a problem if it wasn't for the fact that their relationship is the biggest focus of every single episode, with the same predictable jokes constantly being beaten into your head, the same annoying voice making me wish I was deaf, the same question constantly going through my mind. Why am I still watching?
I know I've let you down. I've been a fool to myself.